Part 4. He stayed away until we were in the middle of our roast beef. Then he came in carrying Dribble's bowl. He walked right up to Mrs. Yarby. He thought she was his new friend. "See?" he said, holding Dribble under her nose. "See, Dribble?" Mrs. Yarby shrieked. "Oh, I can't stand reptiles. Get that thing away from me." Fudge looked disappointed. So he showed Dribble to Mr. Yarby. "See?" he said. "Hatcher!" Mr. Yarby boomed. "Make him get that thing out of here." I wondered why Mr. Yarby called my father Hatcher. Didn't he know my father's first name was Warren? And I didn't really like the way that Mr. and Mrs. Yarby both called Dribble a thing. I jumped up. "Give him to me," I told Fudge. I took Dribble and his bowl and I marched into my room. I inspected my turtle all over. He seemed all right. I didn't want to make a big scene in front of our company, but I was mad. I mean, really mad. That kid knows he's not allowed to touch my turtle. "Peter," my father called, "come on out and finish your dinner." When I got back to the table, I heard Mrs. Yarby say, "It must be interesting to have children. We've never had any ourselves." "But if we did," Mr. Yarby told my father, "we would teach them some manners. I'm a firm believer in old-fashioned good manners." "So are we, Howard," my father said in a weak voice. I thought Mr. Yarby had lots of nerve to hint that we had no manners. Didn't I pretend to like their dumb old picture dictionary? If that's not good manners, then I don't know what is. My father excused herself and carried Fudge back into my room. I guess she put him in his crib again, and I hope she told him to keep his hands off my things. We didn't hear from him again until dessert. Then, just as my mother was pouring the coffee, we ran in, wearing my rubber gorilla mask from last Halloween. It was a very realistic-looking mask. I guess that's why Mrs. Yarby screamed so loudly. If she hadn't made so much noise, maybe my mother wouldn't have spilled coffee all over the floor. My father grabbed Fudge and pulled the gorilla mask right off him. "That's not funny, Fudge," he said. "Funny," Fudge laughed. "Funny, funny, Fudgy." "Yes, sir, Hatcher," said Mr. Yarby. "Old-fashioned manners." By that time, I'm sure my father was sorry that the Yarbys weren't staying in a hotel. I finally got to bed at about 10. Fudge was in his crib slurping away, and I thought I'd never fall asleep, but I guess I did. I woke up all at once when Fudge started babbling. He said, "Booba mum mum haba she," whatever that means. I didn't get scared. I just whispered, "Shut up." And he did. Early the next morning, I felt something funny on my arm. At first, I didn't wake up. I just felt this little tickle. I thought it was part of my dream, But then I had a feeling that someone was staring at me, so I opened my eyes. Fudge was standing over me. Dribble was crawling around on my arm. Well, I guess Fudge could tell that I was ready to kill him because he bent down and kissed me. That's what he does when my mother is angry at him. He thinks nobody can resist him when he makes himself so lovable. And lots of times it works with my mother, but not with me. I jumped up. I put Dribble back into his bowl, and I smacked Fudge on his backside hard. "Ah!" he hollered. Let me go ahead and just skip this commercial here. And then hopefully back to the book. My father came running into the room. He was still wearing his pajamas. He whispered, "What's going on in here?" I pointed at Fudge, and he pointed at me. My father picked up my brother and carried him off. "Go back to sleep, Peter," he said. "It's only 6 o'clock in the morning." I fell asleep for about another hour, and then I woke up to this awful noise. It was Fudge playing with his new train. It woke up everyone, including the Yarbies, but this time there was nobody they could blame, because they were the ones that gave Fudge the train in the first place. Breakfast was a quiet affair. Nobody had much to say. Mr. Yarby drank 2 glasses of Juicio, and then he told my father that he and Mrs. Yarby had their suitcases all packed, and they were leaving for a hotel as soon as breakfast was over. My father said that he understood and that the apartment was really too small for so many people. My mom didn't say anything. When Mr. Yarby went into Fudge's bedroom to pick up his suitcase, though, his voice boomed, "Hatcher!" My father ran toward the bedroom. My mother and Mrs. Yarby followed him. I followed them, and when we got there, we saw Fudge sitting on the Yarby's suitcase. He had decorated it with about 100 green stamps or stickers, the kind that your mother can get at the grocery store. "See," Fudge said. "See, pretty." He laughed. Nobody else did. Then he licked the last green stamp and stuck it right in the middle of the suitcase. "All gone," he sang, holding up his hands. It took my mother about half an hour to peel off all those trading stamps and clean up the Yarby suitcase. The next week, my father came home from the office, collected all the cans of Juicio in the whole house, and dumped them right into the garbage. My mother felt bad that my father had lost such an important account, but my father said, "Don't worry, Juicio wasn't selling very well in stores." Nobody seemed to like the combination of oranges, grapefruits, pineapples, pears, and bananas. "You know, Dad," I said, "I only drank Juicio to be polite." "Really? I hated it." "You know something funny, Peter?" my father said. "I thought it was pretty bad myself." The next chapter is called The Family Dog, and we'll read it tomorrow. Thanks, guys.